What is up, guys? Today I bring to you the spellcaster of the day, the voluptuous gothic assassin from that red side, Pyru gang, Semiramis. She can be summoned as an assassin and a caster. Her place of origin is the Middle East, and she was not only the queen, but the ruler of Assyria for over 40 years. And she did it all with no help, by the way. So I don't want to see none of y'all running around trying to take her credit. Abilities. So complementary to her being a caster, like Medea, Semiramis also has access to the creation of the Dragon Tooth Warriors. She was able to create 3,000 for the war on ground, not to mention that she has her own variation, the Dragon Wing Warriors, for combat in the sky, which we see later on. Class skills. Presence Concealment. The rank is C+. This allows the servant to hide their presence when they're somewhere snooping around. Now, normally the skill would automatically drop if the servant were to go in for an attack, but since Semiramis has a specialty for poison, she's able to bypass this if she has an attack that uses poison. With the use of this skill, she was able to drug the original masters of the Red faction and allow Shiro to have his way with them. That didn't sound right. Territory creation. It's among the best of the best. The rank is EX. Per usual, it's a skill that allows a caster to gain advantage within the confines of their own terrain. And in this case, it's in direct connection to her noble phantasm, the Hanging Gardens, which is described to be a territory superior to a grounded temple. Item construction. The rank is C class. It's a skill that allows you to create magical items for the war. Semiramis just so happens to be the very first person on record to use poison as a weapon. Since she has now solidified herself as a specialist in poison, you can rest assured that she'll be making the best death toxins around. However, due to this being her specialty, she is also constricted to only making poisonous items. Divinity. The rank is C class. Semiramis was born as the daughter of the Syrian fish goddess Derketo and a mortal man. With this in mind, she came out with a little more divinity than some of her peers. Putting this into good use, Semiramis is able to block certain attacks using sacred fish scales as a shield. This includes blocking Mordred's Clarent Blood Arthur, despite all of us knowing how powerful this attack actually is. She was also able to protect Abrasbron from Chiron's arrow when they made it inside of her ship. But to be honest, I wouldn't have been too disappointed if she just let the arrow go through. Personal skills. Doves as a familiar. The rank is D class. See, back in her childhood days, Semiramis was found as an orphan and nurtured by a flock of doves. Because of this, she has grown an affinity for these animals and can now use them as familiars. And thanks to her being a divine spirit, she does not need to form a contract to use them and can operate them on demand with thought alone. During the show, she was able to use them to collect and deliver information on the war whenever it was necessary. And they can track down nearby servants via their magical energy. Double summon. The rank is B class. Here's something you don't see too often. It's a skill that allows a servant to possess not one, but two classes. So for all the people wondering, Tsiah, I thought she was an assassin. Why is she shooting beams and summoning UFOs? I don't understand. She's both. Alright? She has access to the abilities of both a caster and an assassin. And I just gotta say, there's not too many servants that have this. In fact, she's the only servant that has this. Too good, can we please get a nerf? And if you've been one of those people waiting on your favorite servant to be summoned in another class, you tell that servant to step his game up and get that double summon. Then you wouldn't even have those problems. Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Aerial Garden of Vanity. It's an anti-world phantasm, which in this case means that it's a giant bounded field. The rank is EX, the greatest weapon in her entire arsenal. It's a giant floating fortress with so much space that her entire faction was able to use it as their base during the war. It will boost her parameters, increase her fame within its limits, and it will redirect circumstances to be in her favor. This aircraft comes decked out with marble design, enough room to fit thousands of soldiers, and every luxurious plant that you can think of to match. This isn't your typical armament, people. In order to summon this, Semiramis requires at least 3 days and materials from the land where she once lived. These materials include soil, stone, minerals, wood, plants, and a fixed amount of water. The pricing just to buy these materials are described to cost the same amount as buying a small country, and the more money you put into it, the stronger the phantasm gets. The reason that she even has to go through all of this as a ritual is because the Hanging Gardens of Babylon don't actually belong to her. The construction of this garden is usually attributed to King Nebuchadnezzar II, but since so many people thought that Semiramis performed witchcraft in her lifetime, they gave it to her anyway. In reality, Semiramis tried to bring a king back to life in her lore using black magic. Didn't work out, so she played off the resurrection by replacing him with a doppelganger instead. And through this misconception, she was able to reap the benefits nonetheless. Any servant who is aware that she didn't build this will be able to see through it immediately. And I'm more than certain that Gilgamesh has a thing or two to say about this. Now, despite the Hanging Gardens being an impeccable source if you're relying on it for defense, it was more catered to being an extraordinary offense. Her main place of operation comes from the throne room. The End of Apocrypha has an abundance of dope scenes, and the fight between Mordred and Semiramis is no exception. These people real life had Mordred and Semi throwing down in a cage match. You, me, right here, right now. Now personally, I would have preferred if they did this in wet t-shirts, but you know what? I'm okay with this too. And despite Semiramis being defeated and having her spiritual core destroyed by Mordred, she was still able to survive long enough to use her chains on Astolfo later on. Now, when it comes to the speed of the Hanging Gardens, it's pretty slow, but at the same time, you would need a means to even get in the air if you had any intentions on bringing her down. And it's not too often that she isn't ready for all the smoke. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's fine, we'll just shoot her down instead. No, you won't actually. Did I mention that since this aircraft is EX level, it comes equipped with EX level beams? So powerful that servants with even the strongest magic resistance were still having trouble dealing with this problem. Then you'll have to deal with her magical chains. Now, the downside to this phantasm is that once she leaves the garden, she sucks. I don't know how else to say it. Thankfully, she doesn't have to leave ever unless it's of her own volition. But don't get your hopes up. She won't even create the garden unless she finds her master somewhat interesting. Guess my boy Cheryl lucked out. Sakura Usum, Arrogant King's Alcohol. Butchered that one for sure. Sometimes it's treated as a personal skill, but in this case, it's an anti-army phantasm. It's the manifestation of the time when Semiramis became the first person to catch a body using poison. Diving back into her lore, Semiramis used to be married to Onus, one of the generals that worked for the Assyrian king, Ninus. Well, one day Ninus woke up and told Onus, hey, you're gonna have to give up Semiramis or I'm gonna make you wish you had it. Onus ended up taking his own life, and now Semi is forced into a relationship that she doesn't even want to be in. This honestly put her in a state of confusion. I don't even like this dude, and I don't like the way he did Onus, so I'ma do him the same way. Shortly after their marriage, she hit Ninus with the poison and took over his entire empire. Because of this, she has acquired access to this poison in Fate as well. Now I do want to bring up that there are some restrictions. If she's summoned with Hanging Gardens of Babylon, she can only use this phantasm from the throne room. That's not to say that she can't poison people at all, since we clearly saw her drug the original masters of the red. But what this means is that she can only use it at its full capability when she's in that area. If she's brought into the world without her double summon skill, then she won't have the Gardens of Babylon, which in turn means that this phantasm will become available anywhere, since it will now be used as her main weapon. Once it's put into effect, it will immediately make everything in her surroundings, including herself, poisonous. This includes portions of the atmosphere, which means that you won't even be able to breathe. Have fun with that. Now, if you had a time in your life where you were able to bypass getting poisoned, fantastic, you get a debuff. However, if you had an event where you were killed by poison, then you might as well walk the other way. Her attacks will be twice as effective, and you can't do a thing about it. Unless of course you're like Tsiah and you already came prepared. In addition to this, she can manipulate these poisons at will and use sharp chains to bind her opponent. And for those of you who thought that doves were her only familiar, yeah, right, inside the Hanging Gardens, Semiramis has shown the ability to create even more familiars as long as they have ties to poison. She was even able to demonstrate this when she created Basmu, one of the familiars that used to belong to Tiamat. Like the video so we can get this trending. Let me know what you guys think, and follow me on Twitter at SiahIV for updates on the content. It is your boy Tsiah. I'm out.
With no advance, give my nigga a chance. Tryna see what he gon' do. He done ran up them bands. I done got me some bands too. I can drip on the ground too. So my hood let it down too. I can decide. Look for and call him a ride. The phantom roast body is what?